Greetings, ghosts and ghouls. Hola, happy spooky season. I'm very excited to talk about Holo Taco's Halloween collection of 2025. So the collection itself consists of 6 polishes, and included in the collection is the limited edition birthday polish for Cristine, and that one is Simply Deceased. And then the uni cartons themselves are limited edition, but it doesn't seem like the rest of the polishes are limited edition. The aqua glow in the dark polish that is being released at the same time as this collection is not part of the collection set. You have to purchase that separately. As a disclaimer, I did not purchase this collection myself. Holo Taco was nice enough to send it to me as gifted PR. I'm not obligated to post about it, talk about it, create content, or do anything with it, but I do want to showcase these polishes off to you and do comparisons near the end. So without further ado, let's get into swatching. Just kidding, we're going to be looking at the unit carton, and it's this graveyard spooky vibe going on throughout with tombstones in the back with each polish's name. And then inside it contains the individual cartons that the polishes come in, and that being a black to green gradient with the little Holo Taco icons hidden within. And I know this collection box set is technically sold out already, so again, sorry this video is so late. Okay, moving on to our first shade, we have Simply Deceased, which is the limited edition birthday polish of Cristine. Now this one is a orangey leaning red to this black shade that almost borderline wants to be a dark burgundy color of sorts, especially in the in-between transitions of the thermal. Plus these irregular shaped orange, red, yellow, and occasionally green in certain angles flakes that are very prominent within this shade, and also what I feel is a very sparse amount of what looks like scattered holographic pigment in here. On the PR pamphlet, it doesn't specifically state that there is holo in the mix, and because I want this review to be as raw as possible, I'm also avoiding like product descriptions and other people's reviews because I want to formulate my own opinion. But yeah, you might already know what's going on with these polishes, but again, want to share my thoughts. So overall application was very smooth and it evened out itself nicely. There was no texture when it dried, and one coat of glossy top coat was all I needed. It wasn't like a thirsty polish for me. And the formula is a little on the thicker side because it is a thermal and it consists of irregular shaped flakes that causes a little bit of volume onto the formula itself. Next up, we have Just Vamping, and this is a grimace type of purple Crelly polish. So Crelly polish is usually buildable, and why someone would prefer a Crelly over a creme, I would have to say, is because they like the squishy look, I guess, of a Crelly or that hybrid of sorts. But overall, this does have like a pink undertone to it, so it is a little bit on the warmer side. And for me, I needed 3 coats to get full even coverage because the first coat was very patchy. The second coat, I could see some lighter areas, and then the third coat completely covered them up for me. This polish does dry semi-matte, so if you like a glossy look, go ahead and put glossy top coat. If you like a matte look, still apply a matte top coat just to seal it all in. Now the formula of this polish isn't like thick, it's a nice viscosity where it's still pliable, and the formula really evens itself out for me. Like it was a smooth overlay on the nail, and I didn't feel like I had to finagle with it too much. Next up, we have Thirst Trap, and this is a vivid red micro metallic foil polish that we know and love. Now this red is a little on the warm side. To me, when I swatched it on like a white piece of paper, it felt more pink leaning than orange leaning, but it's like very little pink leaning in my opinion, but like you can still tell that it's a warm red. So application of this polish was absolutely amazing. Like first coat, I felt like I had full coverage on my short nails. I did go in with a second coat just to showcase the buildability of this polish, but honestly, I don't think I could tell a difference between the first coat and the second coat. I felt like I have the same full coverage as I did on the first coat with the second coat. And then to talk a little bit more on the formula of of this polish. It's so fluid in the sense that there's no hassle in applying it whatsoever. Like if you want a quick, I need to put something on my nails and get out of here polish, I feel like this would be it. And also I kind of like that it plays both Halloweeny, but also for the next holiday season that's coming up here, because of the metallic foils, it plays the part of a Christmassy red of sorts. So duality at its best. Knock knock, trick or trash. So trick or trash is a black jelly based polish with these irregular sized multicolored foiled flakies going throughout. I have to say, I really enjoy that these flakes are actually multicolored versus iridescent. I feel like the colors just pop very well with the black jelly base on here. I did have to build it up to 3 coats because one, I'm not usually a fan of the transparent effect of jelly polishes. I am a full coverage lady and 3 coats for me did that. And I just love the multi-dimensional look within the multicolored flakes here, and the colors of the flakes themselves just paired nicely. It's giving me like 80s arcade carpet vibes. I don't know. As for the formula, it is on the thicker side, but not thick to where I felt like thinner is needed. It's that in between viscosity of the thermal and how Thirst Trap performed. And something about this polish is that for me, it felt very smooth when it dried down. I felt like I only needed 1 coat of top coat and I was good to go. The polish didn't seem thirsty either, and by that I mean it didn't drink up the first coat of the top coat, requiring me to put a second one. That first coat just laid on it nicely and gave me a smooth, shiny finish. So moving on, we have So Toxic, and this is a bright lime colored crelly polish. And something that I immediately noticed about this formula is that it felt creamier, almost wanting to be more of a creme polish versus a crelly, like how just vamping felt. And this polish had a hard time self-leveling itself out. I felt like I kept having these weird divots of sorts. So on the first coat, of course, patchy, whatever. On the second coat, I saw some darker patches going throughout the nail. So I went in with a 3rd coat in hopes of covering that up, and also trying to float the brush as I applied it to get an even distribution and maybe have it self-level itself out better. However, I still see those like bumps, but like it is of a textured finish. Like wherever the brush last left a small puddle of the polish, like it just dried like that. It didn't self-level itself out. However, a top coat did remedy this issue for me. I didn't see those elevated areas as much as I did with the polish on its own. So I have a theory that this polish could be UV reactive, just seeing how bright it is. I don't own a UV light to test it out, so I'm going with my gut. Moving on, we have Dead Serious, and this is a multi-chrome polish that leans from a very dark burgundy to a red. And the formula of this one is one of the looser formulas in this collection. Like it was of a looser viscosity than Thirst Trap, but it still gave me a good color payout on the first coat, albeit very patchy. But the second coat really came in and gave me that full coverage, which was shocking to me because, again, I felt like this polish was very thin. But for me, on my short nails, it gave me full coverage in 2 coats. I believe those with longer, wider nails may need an additional coat, but of course that's dependent on how you load your brush and how thick your coats are. But overall, this is a very like vampy type of color. I am very biased in the sense that I really enjoy multi-chromes myself. I think they keep me entertained, and I love the shifty colors that they provide, keeping me entertained and not as bored as I would have been if I just had a singular color on my nails. Now moving on to the new glow-in-the-dark topper, and this is the Aqua glow-in-the-dark topper, and it's not part of the collection as I mentioned in the intro, so you will have to purchase this separately from the collection bundle. Now because this is a topper, I'm not aiming for like multiple coats here, so I just did 1 coat on my nail, and something I noticed as it dried down is that it dries down with this gritty, grainy texture of sorts, and on its own you can can see it is a little bit grainy and very uneven, especially with my indents there, but I did put it over white to appease Holo Taco because they do claim that it performs better over white, and yeah, it's brighter, but with one coat it is still on the patchy side, and I do see ever so slight grains in between as well. So I got curious and decided to put the glow-in-the-dark topper over the polishes of the Holoween collection. So I did one coat, and you can see that in the darker colors the top coat did murky them up a little bit. The only exception was So Toxic, in which you kind of didn't really tell that there was a glow-in-the-dark topper on top. And then I did two coats to enhance the brightness more so, and also to see if it evens itself out better versus how it looked with one coat. And on the second coat it really clouded the other shade of the Holoween collection, so be cautious of what colors you put this topper on because it does create a cloudy effect to it. And again, So Toxic was the only one that didn't really like showcase that cloudiness, but also the glow in So Toxic does not show the blue aqua color. It kind of stayed green because So Toxic is that lime vibrant green. So I do want to talk about staining real quick, and it's mainly the two bright reds and the purple that did the most amount of staining, with Simply Deceased being the strongest stain of the three. The other two were ever so slight, but I still noticed the stains. Moving on to different lighting, these three are in the sun, and here you can see the dusting of scattered holo in Simply Deceased a little bit better when it's more out of focus. Then for these three, I feel like Trick or Trash is kind of displaying itself much better in the light due to the metallic foils shining out and displaying their colors better. And then in the outdoor shade, I feel like Just Vamping got a little bit darker. Not so much of a difference with the other two, like I don't feel like they're shining any brighter, the flakes are displaying better. And then for the other three sets, Trick or Trash again is a standout here, but also that series is showing the red aspect of its multi-chrome a lot better in this set of lighting. And then indoor shade, I feel like the polishes shift a lot more, where the flakies in Simply Deceased are more prominent, and then Just Vamping is much darker, and then the flakes in Trick or Trash are also much more highlighted, but also Dead Serious is still showcasing a beautiful set of red. So Toxic has stayed the same. Moving on to comparisons, I'm going back to my roots with the swatch stick. So up first we have Simply Deceased, and I thought of comparing it next to Tyler Trinket Rhinestone Cowboy and ilnp Sabrina. So in the cold state, I feel like Rhinestone Cowboy is the closest to it, with Rhinestone Cowboy being just ever more red leaning with the flakes specifically, and the base of it being a little bit more of a darker red. Sabrina, the color of it is somewhat close, but it doesn't display the same properties as Simply Deceased. Keeping up with the comparisons in the cold state, I have here Holo Taco Misfire and Holo Taco's Orbite Me. So Misfire is more of a deeper, darker red, alongside with Orbite Me being even darker yet. Formulation wise, very different, with one of them being a flaky / thermal, the other two being more holographic glitter type of vibes. And then I started comparing it next to Mooncat's Nocturne unmagnetized and Mooncat's Dawn of the Empire unmagnetized, just because there are some orange tendencies with Simply Deceased. However, they don't really compare to Simply Deceased, especially because Simply Deceased is a flaky polish, and Nocturne does have some flakes, but it's not the same quantity and irregularity of the flakes. And then for the warm state, I've thought of comparing it next to Mooncat's Forces of Evil and Holo Taco's Big Reef Energy. However, the reds may be slightly similar, but the flakies are not. Then moving on to Just Vamping, I have here Mooncat's Queen of Chaos and Mooncat's The Doppelganger. Queen of Chaos is a lot more cool tone and almost leans a little indigo of sorts. Also, Queen of Chaos is a creme, whereas Just Vamping is a crelly, but honestly, they don't really look that different on these swatch sticks. And then the Doppelganger is kind of on its own over here. Then I thought of comparing it next to Mooncat's Nightcrawler and Mooncat's Hell's Other People. So Nightcrawler I thought might be a similar shade, but it's more of a dusty, muted type of purple, and then Hell's Other People is more maroony / plum. I definitely wanted to compare it next to ilnp's Nightshade and ilnp's Guestless. Nightshade specifically because it is that darker gothic purple, and just to see those two next to each other really displays the difference in that ilnp is more of an off black purple, and Guestless, its purple range is similar, but it does have extra elements that just vamping doesn't have. And then I thought comparing it next to Crack's Eggplant Emoji and Holo Taco's Indigo Away. Crack's polish is more dusty and a lighter shade of purple in my opinion, and then Indigo Away here really displays itself more blue leaning versus that in-between shade. And then I wanted to compare it next to Holo Taco's Work Bestie and Holo Taco's Guilty Pleasure in the cold state. So Work Bestie is giving Barney, whereas Guilty Pleasure, it's giving more like, I don't know, Y2K purple? Does that make sense? Then for Thirst Trap, I have here Mooncat's The Arsonist and Mooncat's My Sandy Claus outfit. So the Arsonist is more of a true red and a cool leaning red, which I absolutely love. And then My Sandy Claus outfit's more of that pink red, so this is a nice way to see the ranges of red. And then I thought of comparing it next to Holo Taco's Ruby Madly Deeply and Holo Taco's Naughty List. Ruby mainly because it's also that orangey type of red, but you can kind of see that Ruby's a lot darker, and it has other elements in the mix too. And the Naughty List is kind of on its own here, being that darker cool tone red. I also wanted to see it next to Holo Taco's Favorite Sister and Holo Taco's Red Licorice. So Favorite Sister, to me, feels like it is that neutral red. I don't know if I would say it's cool tone leaning. And then Red Licorice is more of a pink leaning red, but in between these two you can really see how orange leaning Thirst Trap is, with a somewhat neutral and a pink leaning red. Lastly, I had Holo Taco's Sacrificial Lacquer unmagnetized and Holo Taco's Private Villa. Sacrificial Lacquer is a beautiful Christmassy red. When paired next to Thirst Trap, it looks more cool tone leaning, and then Private Villa is very pink, almost borderline coral. For Trick or Trash, I wanted to compare it next to Holo Taco's Black Hollow Wish and Holo Taco's Waste of Space. Black Hollow Wish is a black hollow polish and the black of it seems to have kind of faded a little bit, I think, in my bottle. It's not a true black. And then Waste of Space does have that multicolor aspect to it, but they're not flakies and they're not as like in your face. What's more in your face is that red shimmer. Then of course I wanted to see it next to Mooncat's Chemical X and my own concoction of Holo Taco's One Coat Black and Everything Taco. So Chemical X consists of iridescent flakies, and they're much bigger in size, although they are irregular, similar to how Trick or Trash is. And then Everything Taco is also an amalgamation of different types of flakies, but they're also iridescent, so they're not those metallic foils that have that nice contrasty color that the flakes provide. For So Toxic, I have here Holo Taco's Here for the Payday and Holo Taco's Green Screen. Here for the Payday is kind of like the pastel version of So Toxic, and then Green Screen here is just to showcase how lime and vibrant of green it is. Then I wanted to compare it to Mooncat's My Bugs and ilnp Sour Apple. So My Bugs, again, it's more pastel-y, it's a much lighter shade. However, ilnp Sour Apple for me is the closest. The only difference that I can tell is that Sour Apple is a true jelly polish. You can see that squishiness of sorts, and also it is much brighter and vivid than So Toxic, which is even crazy to say because like So Toxic was already bright on its own, but when paired next to Sour Apple, you can see the difference in terms of brightness. Lastly, I wanted to compare it next to Mooncat's Ribbit and Mooncat's Plankton. Ribbit is more of a bioluminescent type of green, especially with that blue shimmer in the mix, and then Plankton is looking more of a green, like a true green, versus that vibrant green when it's like standalone. For Dead Serious, I wanted to see it next to Holo Taco's I'm Over Brew and Holo Taco's Cat's Evasion. So I'm Over Brew I thought could be similar to that burgundy red that's showing up in Dead Serious. However, I'm Over Brew is a creme. And then Cat Evasion is another multi-chrome, but its shift is predominantly purple and orange. And here I have it next to Holo Tacos Double Dare and Holo Tacos Gosh Garnet. Double Dare, I would say, has a similar multi-chrome shiftiness. However, what overpowers it is the hollow and the reflective glitter in there. And then Gosh Garnet is more of a orange/red shift versus that deep burgundy purple of sorts to red that Dead Serious has. And then the most anticipated comparison is ilnp's Eclipse, and then Mooncat's Freshly Bitten is just kind of here for the ride. But Eclipse is a red to black multi-chrome polish. However, when paired next to Dead Serious, you can see the more purple aspect that Dead Serious has, whereas ilnp's Eclipse is more fierce and very strong, and Dead Serious kind of gives a more softer look because of that purple to red, and the red's not like the prominent one showcasing itself like how Eclipse showcased the red. So maybe that harsh contrast between red and black, like an actual stark black, gives it a stronger aura of sorts. And not to make this comparison even longer, but I wanted to showcase that the red shift that both Eclipse and Dead Serious have at extreme angles turn into this orangey shade, which is very, very identical. And then I don't have much for the aqua glow in the dark, but I do have the original glow in the dark by Holo Taco. And then Mooncat's Castle of the Cobwebs is also a glow in the dark, but it's predominantly green, but I thought maybe the blue shimmers mixed in would do something. However, as you can see, the aqua glow in the dark is blue and the other two are green. But something interesting that I noticed is that the original glow in the dark is more liquidy, like it kind of like rode off on the swatch stick than how the aqua glow in the dark is. So they definitely tweaked their formula for sure. So that concludes the swatch and comparison portion of this video. So overall, I'm very excited that we are having what is perceived to be more of an actual like classic Halloween-y type of collection. I really enjoy just vamping. I don't have a purple like it, but it is the perfect purple for me because it is dark enough, but I can still see the purple, which is what I had hoped that Nightshade would be from ilnp, like dark enough, but I could still see the purple. And I think Holo Taco really kind of hit it out of the park with this one. And I know it's a simple like crelly finish and nothing spectacular is going on with it, but I sometimes enjoy a clean look because it's a nice palette cleanser from all the specialty finishes. Some of the formulas of these polishes I've already discussed in the swatching portion of the video, but I felt like some of them were unnecessarily thicker than others. The thermals I understand, like it has flakies, and stereotypically thermals tend to be on the thicker side. The one that I struggled the most with was So Toxic. For some reason, it just didn't level out and even itself out as nicely as I would have hoped. I kind of wish it performed the same as Just Vamping. Just Vamping leveled itself and was very smooth. I feel like for me, So Toxic is going to be needing thinner, just because I do find it too thick to comfortably paint on my nails. And then I do want to talk about there being essentially 3 reds. Usually I am not a big fan of when the same colors kind of in the collection multiple times, but I'm not against it here because each red is very different than the rest. So we have Thirst Trap, which is this vibrant, almost Christmassy red of sorts, and that is like a red. And then we have Dead Serious, which is a multi-chrome that shifts from this purple, black to red. And the red is not like in your face, so it's more of a peekaboo red. So very different compared to Thirst Trap. And then we have Simply Deceased, and that one is a thermal that transitions from black to red, and it has chunky, flaky attributes in the mix. So they're each different to where I feel it makes sense. Of course, I would have preferred there being an orange because you have your purple, you have your neon lime green, you have your blacks, and I feel like an orange is the only missing component to make it a classic Halloween color-esque thing. But yeah, those are my thoughts and opinions. If you'd like to see more Holo Taco swatch videos that I've done, you can click here. Or if you'd like to see what else I have in my profile, you can click here. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me, and I'll see you the next time. Bye!